Dear members and guests, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Welcome to the Art Circle webinar series, The New Dynamic of the Middle East Art Scene. For the newcomers, the Art Circle was founded in 2018 in Abu Dhabi. We are a group of international women, art collectors and art passionate. It's a non-profit organization that aims to promote arts, artists and institutions from or in connection with the MENASA region. We seek to promote the appreciation of art, nurture artistic growth, and encourage conversation. Today's event is part of our series that is composed of 3 chapters. The first one took place in May. It was about the United Arab Emirates art scene. We were extremely honored and thankful that 3 prominent women working as director in the main arts institution of the UAE had accepted our invitation. For those who missed it and would like to see it, it's available for replay on our website. The second one is today on the Egyptian art scene. And the third one will be in 2022 on the Saudi Arabian art scene. Tonight, we are extremely excited and thankful that 3 important figures of the Egyptian art scene have accepted our invitation. On behalf of the Art Circle board, I would like to warmly welcome Nadnie Ghaffar, founder and curator of Art Egypt, Moataz Nasr, Egyptian artist, and Bahia, multidisciplinary artist, designer, and historian. Vincent Larnicole, who is our moderator tonight, will further introduce our panel to you. Vincent is a great contributor to the Art Circle and an art collector. Before starting, I have a few administrative matters. First of all, we have put you all on mute, so please remain muted during the whole presentation. And may I ask you to address your question by writing them directly to Vincent in the chat function. Vincent will ask them for you. Please join me to welcome our amazing panelists. Vincent, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, of course, and thank you all for attending. I hope you can hear me right. And I'm looking at Nadine, and when we talk about the new dynamic of the Middle East art scene, I mean, talk about dynamic. Nadine is actually in the car on her way to the airport. So thank you very much, Nadine, for taking the time tonight. I know you're obviously very busy. I will introduce each one of you in a few minutes, but because Nadine, I know that you're in a rush to take a flight, I think if I'm not mistaken, to the US and possibly maybe even to Miami. So I suspect that you're going to Miami Art Fair. Probably.
Exactly.
I'm sure. And you'll have a lot to see and to talk and to exchange out there, of course. I'm going to start with you, Nadine. And again, congratulations, of course, for this incredible in situ performance, I would even call it. The actual show is a performance, I believe. And it's definitely something that we would call in French un exploit, what you have achieved. Now, the Art d'Egypte is not new. But I would like for you to talk a little bit about it. I know you have, unfortunately, a short amount of time with us, so I'm not going to be talking too much. I know you can talk about your own thing by yourself. So please, we would like to know a bit more about what it is about. Why did you do this? And of course, after a success like this, and after so much media coverage, international coverage, where are you going next? Is Art d'Egypte going to be a tour?
So actually, Vincent, I'll take the floor. As you know, Art d'Egypte ladies are always on speed mode. So yes, going to the airport. Actually, I'm entering now. It was a bit busy, so I had pre-recorded myself just in case you need it later. Hi everyone, I'd love to welcome you all to the Art Circle webinar. I'm happy I was invited to take part of this. I'm going to leave you with 2 amazing people, Moataz Nasr and Bahia. Bahia has also been one of our advisors for a long time as well, and Moataz is an extraordinary artist. So basically who we are, we started in 2017 by merging contemporary art in historical spaces in Egypt. We have an abundance of historical spaces, of course, and repurposing these spaces, giving them life through the lens of contemporary artists. by doing so, we function a bit like a social enterprise. So we work on the tangible heritage by contributing in-kind donations such as lighting, redoing signage. We work a lot on the tangible spaces we exhibit in. And we also work on the intangible through community engagement programs with the young people that live around those spaces. Because we believe our vision is more of a 360-degree vision. So the first year I was asked the same question, Vincent, what next? And that was in 2017 at the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir. It was attended also by Isabella Jani, by people from around the world. I was all alone. So Sultan Al-Qasbi gave me the title of the one-woman army. And we hit world news at that time. And everyone was like, you're crazy, what will be next? And then, as you see in the picture, that was Manial Palace. And then we did Moataz Street in historic Cairo, which in my opinion was one of the most beautiful exhibitions because the synergy between the collectors, the artists and the people living on the street was just out of this. So not only do we try to promote art, we try to revive heritage through contemporary artists, and we work with the ministry in private-public partnerships. So we do these exhibitions under the auspices of the Ministry of Antiquities, Foreign Affairs, and the UNESCO for our cultural engagement programs. And the whole idea is to democratize art and make it accessible to all. Of course, this year was unprecedented. Moataz knows about it. We had 500,000 visitors in 3 weeks. So that was a first in Egypt. And we were always like, are Egyptians ready for that? But it was just amazing that the public was so welcoming to such an exhibition. So as I said, we do yearly exhibitions under the auspices of the UNESCO as well. And again, it's a surprise for next year. We'll let you know very soon. We'll announce very soon. Those are at the Egyptian Museum, Manial Palace, and then Historic Cairo in 2019. This year, honestly, we knew it was going to be a big hit, but we never had imagined it to be that big and to hit 2.9 billion online reach and viewers. So we were covered by CNN, Forbes, let alone all the feeds were going crazy with what was happening in Art d'Egypte and in Cairo. And I'm proud to say we're a tiny team of 8 women. And that's why we have UN Women, 8 Egyptian women. I'm very proud of my team. They're all young girls. We are an enigma to so many people because, as you can see, a tiny team, very little funding. So hopefully the people listening will join us and collaborate with us next year. I'll have to leave the floor to you guys, and I'll join you again in a bit when I check in. I'll leave you with the video so that people can understand better what we do.
Thank you very, very much, Nadine. And again, congratulations, of course. And I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of everyone watching today. I think the people who had the chance to come and see and buy them for themselves were obviously astonished with what you did. So Mabruk, obviously, and
thank you.
Hopefully we'll hear from you soon in this conference, obviously, once you checked in, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon about what's next with Art d'Egypte. So once again, thank you so much for that. Probably I will switch to Moataz, because obviously Moataz was one of the main exhibitors in of course, in Art d'Egypte. And perhaps we can switch to you, Moataz. Obviously, can you hear us, Moataz? I see you talking. I think you're on mute. You're on mute, Moataz. You need to unmute yourself. Still mute?
Mute.
Yes.
Okay, you hear me now? Okay.
We can hear you well and sound.
Okay, perfect.
Moataz, I mean, it is not the first time for you to participate in something strong, big. I remember seeing in FIAC a few years ago in Jardin des Tuileries, the sunboat. And this is also obviously prominent featuring. Obviously, you were at Venice Biennale a few years ago. So it was not the first time, but I suppose that for an Egyptian artist, the weight on your shoulders, exhibiting a masterpiece, I mean, at least this is the feeling I have, in front of the pyramids or within the vicinity of the pyramids, must have been quite an adventure. And I would like for you to tell us a bit more about what it is that you had to go through, perhaps emotionally and as an artist in the creative process within Art Egypt.
Okay. Well, actually, it's a privilege for any artist anywhere around the world to show his work in front of the pyramids. It's I would even would love to say it's a challenge. It's a very big challenge. Like usually when I deal with spaces, and that's part of the love that I love to do when I'm doing my artwork, because spaces have their personality, have their energies like us. And in order to accept you, you have to be humble, and you have to learn how to deal with it. But with the pyramids, with this incredible energy and power, and the incredible void around it, like totally void, and you look like just a piece of stone thrown in the desert. It's not an easy thing. So you can just disappear, and you can just be there, presented. So it was quite a challenge. So that was the main thing that actually moved me at the very beginning when I was told that I'm going to be part of the Pyramid Show. Thanks to Nadine Taban, of course, and thanks for what she did and how she managed to allow this to happen. So yeah, it was quite a different experience, and it took me a while. I used to go there like almost a lot. I don't know how many times, sitting there thinking and considering. And then I decided, and I did my 3D thing, and I sent it to Nadine, and it was accepted by the government. And then we start working, and actually everything went so quiet after that. It was everything like happened smoothly. Like until I finished my work, everything, I didn't face any issue, any problem. Everything went so smoothly. And I think this is also the team of Nadim and the team that works with me. They were amazing, and we managed to do everything in very little time. And I saw the work there presented like everybody else. So it was really beautiful. And I'm happy with the results, and I don't know. Yani, it's like I need to get out of it now slowly, because it's taking me over, like taking. So I need to get away a bit from there, so I can start to think of what I'm gonna do next.
And actually,
so yes, definitely, it was a challenge. Yeah.
And actually, Moataz, I have seen your work in several occasions. I would call them international occasions. Some regional, Sharjah, obviously some Europeans. Was it the first time that you had such an important show of your work in Egypt? And I've read quite a bit about the relationship you have with, let's say, bringing new artists or new craftsmen. You are interacting with the local population, the local artistic population, I would say. Did you use other Egyptian artists in the process of your creation, including the fabrication of your piece? Are you actually fabricating in yourself? Are you using other people? How does the actual fabrication process work?
Well, it's different from one work than the other. Yani every work, it depends what I'm doing. So in this work, actually, I needed a good craftsman, a good carpenter, and I just worked with him. And then the rest was just like kind of how to do the structure and all these things. We were, I think I gained enough experience to be able to do that now by myself. So it wasn't really like I didn't work with others, but in other works, of course, sometimes like when I did this work in Pisa, for example, I needed to do this sculpture of the griffin, and I wanted to use the skin because I found out that the area fully are like famous of skin, making this leather jackets and bags for women, and all the big names have factories all around the area there. So I was fascinated actually, and I loved it so much. And I got the support and the help from Dolce and Gabbana. They helped me to reproduce the piece, and they were so happy to be part of it. So I have there the top artisan who was working there, the whole top sorry, not artisan, the top designer for them. He was working with me, and he was really so excited about what how it's going to look at the end. It was very tough, and it took us more than six months to work on this piece because it was full of details, and we have to find a way to how we can do it and how can we replace it. So it's always different from one artwork to the other what I need, but I definitely I take my time and I think about it, and I don't have any issue or problem asking the advice from anybody who might know something that I don't know or can help you with anything. So I listen. I'm a very good listener usually, and I read a lot, and I try to do my research, and then I come out with with whatever idea, and I put it the way you see it.
But Moataz, coming back to our original theme, which is obviously the dynamic within the Egyptian art scene, do you feel that what you have done in Art d'Egypte, and again, this work will be remembered for sure, how do you see the relationship with younger artists? Do they look at you as a kind of mentor now? I'm sure they were already looking at you as a mentor, but maybe there's a kind of a movement now, or do you see something happening within the younger artist community, or even the scholars? Do you see this happening?
I will start with yes, but I need to keep going and to say more, because actually, you know what? I've been showing my work most of the time out of Egypt. I've never shown my work in Egypt. I had this idea that people won't really understand what I'm doing, because the only chances that I got to show my work was through the government, and then it didn't work between us. So I decided to get out from the art scene in Egypt and just to concentrate on the international art scene, which was fine for me. But I was always deep inside me. I felt that the need. I wanna meet my people. I wanna interact with them. They know me as an artist. I have a lot of students and artists, young artists, who always come to me and they ask me, and I always collaborate and I help them, and I give them whatever advice they need. But the audience in Egypt was, no matter what, no more than 1,000 in any exhibition. So this interaction between me and the audience was very little in Egypt. Like it's the usual suspects, you know, the artists, the art students, full stop. And because also we don't have this whole machine of who's taking care of art. We don't have critics. We don't have magazine about art. We don't have art managements. We don't have curators. So it's a lot of things that we're missing here. So I wasn't really so happy with the show and the work here. Like, it was not. I wasn't fulfilled. Let's say that. So when I had this chance, I was not expecting much, although it was important for me myself as a person, but I wasn't expecting much from the audience. But I was really shocked, and I realized that I was totally wrong. It's the problem is what is shown. what are you showing to the people? And I got thousands of messages from Egyptians, knowing that 500 Egyptians went to the pyramids, maybe some of them for the first time since they were 2 or 3 years when they went with their fathers or the family. And it was incredible. It was overwhelming for me. It's like, oh my God, this is like too much. And I have to answer everything. And that was really heavy. But it was really beautiful as well. I loved it. And I love to answer every person who sent me something, whether email or WhatsApp or Instagram or whatever. And I felt, wow, well, I'm missing something. I missed something throughout the last years, and now it's time to redo it again. I mean, yes, I always wanted to live in Egypt. I always want to live and die in Egypt and to show my work here. But I've never had the chance to have my work shown to that number of people. So it's a privilege, and I definitely. I don't think anyone would have be able to do it unless they have this dynamic that Nadine have, which is really beautiful. And it was a great ad, of course, to the show. Of course, everything is behind the scenes that we don't know, we didn't see. At the end, the artists are there, and wow, lovely work, beautiful work. But I'm sure, and 100%, there was a lot more that happened in between. From that moment they choose the artist till the moment they show the work, that was so heavy and so hard, especially dealing with the government and with all the restrictions about showing a work in such a place, the measurements, the heights, how tall is the work, how long, how blah blah. You can't go higher than this, because actually I heard this from someone who was telling me, you're gonna hide the pyramid. And I was laughing, because it's like, you don't know. It's impossible. It's impossible. No one can hide it.
But Moataz, perhaps I think it's also interesting to understand because I think at Art d'Egypte, quite a lot of artists were actually international artists. So how did you see the relationship with those international artists? And do you feel that they are also now recognizing Egypt in a different way, which is stepping away a little bit from the sort of the weight, I would say, of the pyramids and the tremendous history of Egypt? Do you feel that international artists, perhaps even international galleries, I know you're represented by, of course, a prominent gallery, Galerie Continua. Do you believe that those international players are now having a different vision of contemporary art seen in Egypt?
This is a question I don't know. I don't know if I can answer this, because this is a very deep question, and actually it needs a lot to. Well, I think that the few Egyptian artists that are hanging around the world are doing this ambassador role, and they're showing that there is something happening in Egypt. So this is first of all. But to have such an exhibition and to bring artists from around the world to show here, it's for the first time, hoping that it will be repeated several times, more and more and more, and then it's gonna open the appetite of the other artists. Like, it's a place that anyone would love to show. Like, for example, I showed twice at the Tuileries Garden. The first time, it was for me amazing. I mean, it was 2012, I guess, and I did this maze in the middle of the garden, the Tuileries Garden. And for me, it was wow. Like, I've been there in front of the Concorde, and everybody is passing by. So it was really fantastic. Actually, I was supposed to show 3 times, but the second time my work got stolen. But anyway, and the third time was the sunboat that I was showing also in Abu Dhabi before that, and then it was shown there. And the sunboat is actually, and the barzakh is a process of the sunboat that started long time ago in South Africa. So I love to see. I'm so much in love with this process of how the work kept developing slowly and going on from one side to the other until it was like, because you know what, when you do the artwork as an artist, I do a lot of sketches and I have a lot of, I use my imagination to imagine what I'm going to do, how I'm going to look like, all these things. But everything is totally different than when you see it there in front of you. It's another feeling. It's another, this is when you start to learn. The artwork teach you something more and more and more. So the process happened throughout those 7-8 years. I don't know how long it was, but I'm happy to see the result. As if now when I look at it from outside, I could see that this last show, how easy it was and how simple it was and how everything went so smoothly. It's just because of the process that I've been doing for the last 7-8 years. Is in this way, in this road. So it's very interesting for me. It's like very fulfilling.
Before I let Bahia take over, I want to ask you a bit of a stupid question.
Please, I like stupid questions.
How do you feel about this enormous visibility of your work within Art d'Egypte, of course, but of your work? What do you feel like almost being a successful artist, at least in terms of visibility? I don't know if you're making money. This is not my question. My question is, you are now a hyper visible artist, like other artists.
It's scary, you know what? It's really scary for me. I'm a man who loves to work from behind the scenes. I don't go to openings. I I don't like to be shown and to be pointed. Like say people say, "Oh, that's Moataz." I don't like that at all. I like to be with myself. I prefer to be in my house, in my studio. I like to think. I like to read, to listen to music. I love to have more quiet time with myself. I love to travel. But to be known wherever I go, this is really very scary for me. So it's I attended the opening of this and I didn't go again to the pyramids. It was just like one shot and I'm not going to do it again. So it's a bit scary, actually. I don't know. It's like maybe it's nice for some people because they are seeking that, or they are looking for that, and that's what they want, fame and so. But for me, I was happy with my cocoon. So now I got invaded, and we'll see. We'll see what is going to happen in my life next.
Well, Moataz, we are of course very happy for you because I think I don't know how many hits and how many posts on Instagram you had with your fantastic work. From my standpoint, you deserve this absolute success, and I'm hoping that we can see maybe permanent installations, because obviously this work, unfortunately, I suppose this work is going to be dismantled. We were talking with Nadine earlier, so I suppose it is dismantled. Is it going to go anywhere? Is it going to be featured somewhere else? Is there a plan for us to see it somewhere else?
Yes, there's some plans, but yeah, there is some plans actually. But the thing is, which I love now, is that this piece might stay in Egypt. For we now I don't really get involved in this arrangements of buying and selling with my gallery. This is their job. I don't get involved. I don't even want to know. But what I know now, that this work might stay in Egypt, because I took it off and I was preparing it so I can ship it to Paris, and they told me stop, keep it. So okay, we will see. So I think in the next few days I might get another phone call or something telling me that that this work would be somewhere in Egypt. I got some calls from people here that they wanted to take it, and I was telling them, are you sure you want to, where are you going to put this? Where are you going to put it? But anyway, they,
leave it there. Leave it in front of the pyramids.
Exactly. So anyway,
Well,
we'll see. We'll see. And I'll let you know, of course. And actually,
yes,
if
of
this
course.
happened,
Well,
if this has happened, and I hope it will, I think it will be maybe the first time that an Egyptian is obtaining a contemporary art piece to be put in public. And that definitely might change the whole art scene in Egypt, just by one thing like that. And what happened at what Nadine did at the pyramids, it just was an alarm to those who are on charge that you have a lot of facilities, you have a lot of beauty around you, but you're really not using it the proper way. And there's a lot to give to Egypt because this country deserves more than that. And I think, you know, when you threw a stone in this puddle lake that had never been moved since a while. So she created, Nadine, with this exhibition, this circles of water or waves or whatever you can call it. Some are higher, some are good, and some are bad, of course, expected, like everything happening in the world and everything that we do in our lives, because everybody his own perspective, his own way of looking at things, receiving and answering and understanding. So it's I'm expecting to see a different art scene in Egypt starting from now on.
thank you very much, Moataz. You are giving me the best transition, of course, for the talk with Bahia. I think, Bahia, you already have great material even to comment on what Moataz said, I'm sure. So I know you have prepared something. And Moataz, thank you so much for enlightening us on being an artist in Egypt, being an artist within Art d'Egypte. And maybe we come back to you at the end of the conversation.
Sure.
With some of the questions that the audience will raise.
Bahia,
you are, of course, an artist. And I suddenly remembered earlier today that I had seen your work in Rue de Deauville in Paris a few years back with a great art production organization, K36. And I absolutely adored that work at that time, I remember. But today you are actually, in this conference, you are more than an artist. You happen to also be an art historian. And we wanted to have your view a little bit on what, in fact, Moataz said, and in fact, what Nadine said as well, on this sort of, how does the audience react? Who are the institution? Who are the people who are actually, you know, living the art in Egypt? So I know you've prepared something, so I'm going to give you the floor. And the good news is you've got about 20 minutes rather than 15. So the floor is yours, and thank you again, Bahia, for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. And I really, to build on the previous presentations, I'm interested in talking to you tonight about art and audience, because when we say hits, when we say number of visits, what we are concerned about is the audience, is really how impactful is this work and how is it received by the public. I want to start with this beautiful timeline that I've collected for you. It's on art schools in the Arab world, and I will zoom in a bit. And this starts from the year 1840 up until the year 2000. And each country is coded by a color here, so you can see where the first art school in the Arab world. And when I was looking, I thought it will be in Egypt or in Lebanon. Actually, the first art school was founded in Algeria in 1843. And that was very intriguing for me to find out. And so I kept looking in the timeline and trying to find out, when did the art schools in the Arab world start? So because art school, we will see why I'm starting with art schools, and this is leading to the next part of the conversation. the art schools eventually produce the artists. So I was interested in finding how many art schools are available in the Arab world, or when did they start emerging? So even pre-colonization, there were art schools starting. So you have the American University in Beirut in 1881, the School of Crafts and Fine Arts in Lebanon, and then you also have the School of Islamic Arts and Crafts in Libya, actually. And then you have the Faculty of Fine Arts in Cairo, and also the Cairo University, founded also early on 1908. So now we're talking, if we move on, you also have the National Institute of Fine Arts in Morocco, Tunis, Lebanese, and then you see the other countries, you have Iraq and then Syria, and then more and more in Lebanon, up until, you know, I stopped at 2000. This in 1992 was the a design program in LAU that was founded. There are several others, but these were the key ones that I was able to find. And why is this important in the bigger narrative? Is because if we're looking at the Arab world in totality, we are speaking roughly between what statistics say 380 million to 420 million people. And we only look, I was able to find around 14 to 15 art schools catering to that number of people. So this raises a very important question about this ecosystem of the art cycle, or the life cycle of an artwork. So let's say art schools are the grounds, presumably, where artists are created. This is not the case. Not in Egypt and not all over the world. Many brilliant artists are actually self-taught, and they have never been into an art school in the first place. But as a historian, I'm looking at data that is available to me and trying to understand, how can I understand this ecosystem through this data? So the first set of knowledge I have is that for this, a lot of people in this big plot of land, we have very little art school. This is already one indication. But still, we see a thriving art scene. We see artists who are producing work in Egypt, in Morocco, in Iraq, and now in the Gulf states. We're seeing more and more artists in Saudi Arabia, from the UAE, who are producing also a great work. Syria has a brilliant tradition. Lebanon has a brilliant tradition of artists. So there is no lack of artists. So lack of educational institutions, but still an abundance of artists, also an intriguing situation for us to look at. So now let's look at the public. And we say, these artists, whether they are independent or educated at a school, they created this work of art. And now I'm interested in following the story and the lifeline of this work of art. So the work of art is created, commissioned or non, and then it's displayed in a public or a private place, in a museum, in a gallery, at an institution, or somebody decides to take it home and put it in their collection. So this is the first interaction. This is the first life of the artwork with the public. It's meeting the public, and the artwork is meeting the public in a public space. And then the artwork, after being exposed to this public, is going to go into another phase of its life where somebody decides to keep it because they like it so much, because it speaks to them, because the story is important. Whatever the reason is, this artwork has been acquired. And the acquisitions, again, are museums, collectors, institutions, okay? And these, again, three different factions are important in different ways, because museums are still open to the publics. Some collectors exhibit their collections publicly, some don't. And some institutions exhibit the artwork publicly and some don't. So this means if an artist sells their artwork to a museum, there is a possibility that the artwork will be on display to the public. If it's a collector, the possibility might be less. If it's an institution, also more or less, depending on the institution. So again, where will the artwork go? Where is that artwork going? Why am I asking this question? Because again, the audience and the relevance of the work of art within the society that's being created. And this is the role of critics and historians. And maybe what I'm saying might sound like too banal or too superficial and straightforward, but I really want to drive the point home how this is reflected for us in the community. So Moataz said there is a lack of critics, of journalists, of people writing, of people documenting. And why is that a problem? Because historians eventually create the books where the artworks are documented, and these books go back to the art schools and to the public. And real history is documented on these platforms. Even though there's a great documentation on digital platforms, but these are a bit ephemeral also sometimes. And books and institutions are where artworks really live. This is what I feel is the map of Egypt right now. We have very limited art schools for 110 million people. I don't think we have enough art schools. We have great artists, and we do have an abundance of artists at all levels, those who can deal with museums, those who can deal with galleries, those who can deal with institutions, those who do amazing street art. We do have amazing artists producing work in Egypt. But as Moataz just mentioned, his work might be one of the maybe earliest to be acquired for the public. There were political works that are public, were commissioned by the government and created in Egypt. We do have some of those. But in the last, I don't know, Moataz, 20 to 30, 40 years, this has not happened, that a contemporary artist is being acquired by a governmental entity and displayed in. Maybe other historians can correct me, but this is as far as my knowledge goes. There is a great thriving scene of galleries. There are galleries who are trying to promote artists, but still I put it in pink because I don't think we have enough. I think we need more. I salute them. I think we need more representation at different levels of the ecosystem, because we have some galleries exhibiting like bazaar, like big number of artists together. That is a good module. I'm okay. We have artists who are galleries who are only displaying deceased artists and older collections. That is also okay. I have no problem with that. But I think the portfolio of artists in the Egyptian ecosystem can really contain and have more galleries and curators reflecting on the kind of work that is being produced and curating it and presenting it to the world differently. So I think and also institutions, we don't have enough private institutions or public for that part, who are consciously acquiring arts. This is again reflected on acquisitions. Obviously, if you don't have museums, then you don't have museums acquiring, and you don't have a lot of institutions acquiring. We do have a good body of collectors. Again, many of them prefer to collect the older, more secure kind of, I don't say investment, but their taste of art is for the older generation. And maybe they're not really, like nobody would acquire video art or nobody would acquire audio art. This culture, this part of acquisition is not here yet for us. I see it coming because there's a lot of, there's the Kairotronica festival that is developed that highlights the digital arts in Egypt, and they've been showing amazing work, really brilliant work. So I see a great future. There's DCAF, there's DARB, there's many institutions who are trying to create the scene. So these people are, and Moataz is one of them, and there are many others who are really creating the scene for the independent contemporary art scene. I think the audience is bigger than what we can provide. Even though Moataz is saying only 500 to 1,000 people, I think it's just a matter of curation. This is the missing link for us in Egypt. We need more people who are conscious of the offerings of the artists, and they need to find ways to present it in different ways at different levels, whether museums, institutions, galleries, public schools, public yards, wherever. So historians is a big...
Bahia, may I ask you a question at this point, if you don't mind? Do you believe like the sort of the private model, like the Jamil model, could actually also be implemented in Egypt? Do you think there is perhaps a collecting family or some prominent, I'm going to call it a tycoon or of some sort, could be a kind of showing the way, a little bit like some of the US private collectors who have obviously started museums, schools, etc., etc. Of course, in France with Pinault and Arnaud. Do you think this model could actually be working in Egypt?
I think this is a brilliant parallel. Thank you for bringing it up, because it's really good what Jamil has been doing for the V&A in London. It's great, the traditional art school that they have set up for artisans and people in Cairo. So it's not, their concern is with heritage and contemporary. And they have the Jamil Prize out of the V&A also that is promoting contemporary Islamic and Arab art. So I think that module is a great one. I really hope that we will have somebody in Egypt who would be concerned and who would be investing in culture. I think it would be great for the creative economy to have people really invested in that sector, because I tell you, I have students, for the past 10 years, I have been graduating students and being around students, and I know the young talent, and not just students at universities, but I offered an online course with the Queen Rania Foundation, and it was a simple design course, and it has around 60,000 people registered. So there is a big need for learning, disseminating, curating. There is a lot of talent. I just think we need to build the structures that will cater to these talents and their needs, and promote them and expose them better. So yes, a module like that, there are many modules that could be applied, not just the Jamil module. So there are many modules that can be built on independent artist collectives. So I just want to take a few more minutes to highlight or contextualize my work with audience, because I'm interested in sharing that part of my journey for the simple reason of reflecting with you on audience and not just the artwork itself, and see how do we create audience when there is none, or when the possibility for the creation of an audience has been erased or eliminated. Like the case of Moataz, he decided to go abroad and now he came back home. And this is, I see a beautiful journey of rediscovery in his story. And I want to share parts of the narrative that I've been going through. So on audience and context, and I will go back to this project that was now almost 11 years ago, where I was invited to display work in Europe. And the curator asked me to develop a work of art in Arabic, and my audience doesn't speak Arabic. So I wanted simply to simplify the message and say no 1,000 times. So I looked on historic monuments, on buildings, on everything produced under Arab and Islamic patronage in the past 1,400 years. And I published this book and created this artwork. I said no 1,000 times to an audience who does not speak Arabic. And the message was really catered to an audience that does not speak my language. I was worried of being lost in translation, and I wanted to make the message simple. And this is what drove the creation of the artwork, the audience. And then the audience changed. The revolution started, and that audience, where I was dealing with a concept that is an abstract 1,000 no's to many things, now became concrete. And the revolution started on the street, and I joined it. And these no's that were from tombs, from metal, from wood, from carpets, now had a new message to them. No to violence, no to killing, no to bullets, no to barrier walls, no to burning books. So the no's that were a static object to an audience in Europe that was celebrating 100 years of Islamic art in Europe now became active no's on the street to millions of people who were sharing and interacting with them. So my audience has changed. It's a completely different dynamic. I'm no longer talking about an audience in a white cube. I'm talking about an audience that is organic on the ground, and that is in motion, and that is involved emotionally and politically with what is going on. And this is the question was, how do we create work that is relevant to the moment and its context? So the nose went on for a long time in Cairo, and then this was the state of Cairo. So I decided to take the nose outside. And the first nose I sprayed, it was in Freiburg in Germany. And now it was really reflecting on the nose for all of us again, and not just the nose that I was experiencing on the street of Cairo. So no to extremism, no to racism, no to blood, no to war, no to borders, no to discrimination, no to hatred, no to colonialism, no to violence. And these no's to me were really a reaction to, if Cairo is not my city, then the whole world is my city. If I can't say no there, then I will say no everywhere. And I took this nose, and my audience now is shifting. My audience is no longer the people of my city. My audience are the people of the world and the people of every city I visit. And I'm painting in Arabic, and this is irrelevant to them. How do I make this relevant? And how is this narrative important? So I just went on painting these nose in New Orleans, in Turkey, in London, in Beirut. But to me, the most significant part of these nose is when Shangri-La decided to display the nose pre-elections. So and now they're on Google Arts and Culture. So during an election year defined by the coronavirus, by division, isolation, loss, and racial injustice, Shihab's work offers a stark reminder to US voters that elections also decide the fate of the American ideals and values. It was not about Arabic. It was not about the square. It was about our rights now. And to me, the fact that the tiny stencil that started in Tahrir 11 years ago to be used to drive, again, something as big as American politics in one of the museums in the States was really very significant for the message, the audience, and the context. It was beyond now just a letter. Now it has become a political statement, and it's being used as a political statement to a wide audience. So because I have students who walk into my classroom who know nothing about the revolution, I needed to publish a book. And this is why books are important, to preserve memory. This book is not, unfortunately, can be acquired outside of Egypt. So after the revolution and the documentation of the memoir of the revolution, I felt that no is not enough, and there are other things we need to say. And poetry is always useful to me in these situations, because the poetry of Mahmoud Darwish, who's the Palestinian poet of resistance, gave me comfort, because the people of Palestine have been dealing with ideas of loss for decades now. And his poetry summarized all of these emotions. And the loss that we were feeling, I wanted to deal with it. And his poetry came to my aid. And the first poem I painted was in Vancouver, Stand at the Corner of a Dream and Fight. And the poems continued. A poem for imprisoned butterflies in New York, No to the Impossible in Madison. We love life if we had access to it in Marrakesh. On this earth, there are things worth living for in Tokyo. The people who are drowning at sea, those who have no land, have no sea in Kefalonia in Greece. My country is not a suitcase. And sometimes your work is erased and sometimes it's not, because the audience wants to say, we don't want to hear you, we don't care. We don't care what you have to say. And that's okay. And sometimes your work is celebrated, it's documented, it's preserved. Like this wall at Mediamatic in Amsterdam, where the man actually took the number of the colors, kept it in a folder, and said he will be restoring it every year. So again, it depends on the audience. In Stavanger, I painted How Big is the Idea, How Narrow is the State? Again, another poem. In Paris, I painted one word, I will dream. And in Hawaii, I painted My people will return as light and air and water. So each of these poems have now become part of their community. It's not about me and my message, it's the community who's coming together to create these artworks. So all of these different walls are the stories of the people who create them with me. It's not the walls that are important, it's the audience that is important. It's the community.
Bahia, can I just ask you, sorry, but it's a bit of a technical question. It relates to a question that was raised by one of the members of our audience here, is an Arabic person. Can I just ask you, are those murals always, I would say, commissioned, or are they let's say, outside of a legal framework, let's put it this way. Was it actually officially, you did that because you were commissioned to do it, or what is this kind of a, you know, graffiti style of work?
No, actually, in the beginning, it was makeshift, and then eventually they became commissions because I found communities who are interested in this conversation. So I think we don't have a lot of time left. This was also documented in the book, but then again, what I want to talk about is audience in the gallery versus an audience on the street versus an audience that doesn't exist, like this pyramid of garbage that I constructed in the city, Cairo's garbage collector cities, as a statement on the environment, where the TED Countdown is trying to promote to cut down on carbon emission 30%, and they invited 10 artists from different parts of the world. And I was one of the 10 artists to represent Cairo. And my statement was, for 7,000 years, this country has been providing the world with culture and inspiring the world with the culture that was coming out of it. I hope the world that will not leave us with pyramids of garbage. And that comment was for an audience that never came to see the pyramid that was built. But this message was transmitted to them on social media and in different places. So I will stop here because I think we have a lot to discuss about audience. But just to conclude, that every artist belong to their community, belong to their context, whether this is the geography that they belong to or not. And the mechanisms of that community is what helps the work of art become relevant to the now and the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Bahia. I want to connect with something that you said earlier, which I think is quite relevant to Art d'Egypte and actually I'm sure to your work. You talk about audience, and today the audience is, I would say, probably about 95% of the audience of artists are on social media. Do you feel that what's happening in Egypt, I mean, the frustration that was expressed in a way by Moataz, where he was basically saying, I'm the first to do something like that in a country that has thousands of years of cultural history. You are doing this worldwide, but you are seen by everybody. Do you feel that there's a connection between this sort of digital international audience and the movement of the audience in Egypt? Because the audience of Egypt is, of course, a digital audience as well. How do you play that connection? Because this is a free audience. Obviously, there's no limitation. There's no arbitration on this audience. What's your feeling about that?
So yes, thank you. It's an important question on the digital audience, and I think there's always an online-offline conversation that is taking place, because what generate work on the streets, if it's relevant to its community, it's going to be documented and shared by the community online. And that community will drive more of that people online back. So it's a circle of online, offline inspiration. You can't just live as much as people would like to live in the digital sphere alone. I think relevance to the physicality of the space, the place, and the artwork is still important, even though our audience might be greatly digital.
But you said something also earlier, which I think is very important. You said that collectors in Egypt, and I can probably understand that, because there is une école du Caire, which is obviously modern artists, which you would probably think are collected maybe by an older generation. But Egypt is a very young population. The population in Egypt is very young. I mean, the pyramid of age, if I may say something like that, is obviously closer to 20 years old than it is to 65, obviously. Do you feel that there is also a shift? Because obviously these people are young, and therefore, when I think, I'm not sure if it was you, Bahia, or Moataz, who were talking about, there is no video collectors, there's no digital collector in Egypt. But don't you think this is actually going to happen maybe even tomorrow? I mean, tomorrow you should be having collectors like this. Don't you think the shift is about to happen or is happening?
Yes, I'm very optimistic, but because I see the potential. I feel like it's too slow. I wish we can really speed it up, and this is why we need more schools. We need more curators. We need more historians to disseminate, more journalists, more art critics to write about artists, to create awareness so that not just collectors, but the general audience is more aware. We really need these structures.
And do you think that, again, I'm coming back to the dynamic of the Middle East, the interaction between the institutions in the Gulf, the institutions in Morocco, perhaps. I'm thinking Morocco because I have some personal cultural interest in Morocco. Do you feel that that interaction between institutions could also play a role in the dynamic?
In Arabic, we say مليون بالمية, like 1,000,000%, because I see it from my small design program that we started 10 years ago here, just by connecting to other programs in Beirut, in Morocco, in Kuwait, in Dubai, in Sharjah, in Jeddah, in Syria, in Iraq. There is really a beautiful dynamic that is being created and experience that is being shared that is crucial and important. And I wish we can do the same for art collectors in the Arab world, for museums in the Arab world, for art lovers in the Arab world. There's so much to learn from the geography of the Arab world together.
Bahia, if you remember, Documenta in Kassel was initiated by a private person. And a lot of very big biennale or big art events are actually promoted by private people. And I'm sure this private sector will be the next step, don't you think?
I hope so, because there are no ways, because usually governments are overburdened with tending to the day-to-day, and it's normal, and we see it all over the world. And we really need to create awareness that the private sector needs to be investing in that. I mean, again, the private sector, once they see the potential and they understand the module, then it will be applied. I just think they need to be aware of the potential.
So as a conclusion question, again, I'm kind of summarizing all the questions, as you can probably imagine here. Do you feel that what Art d'Egypte, and I too totally understand, what was, of course, I think the analogy that Moataz was mentioning about the lake and the waves that are, obviously ups and downs. But do you feel this is a bit of a turning point, what just happened with Art d'Egypte? Do you feel the awareness and the visibility of Art d'Egypte will be a turning point, both from the private sector and obviously the public institutions?
I think a conversation has started, and that's a very healthy thing. I think for me, this is the most important part, is that perspectives now different perspectives on events are in conversation, and there is reflection on what is taking place. How influential or how impactful this, as a historian, I cannot tell in the moment. It takes 50 to 100 years to see the impact of an event. So we can never really tell if this event is impactful in the moment. This always takes a few years for us to see and study the data. So right now, it seems like there's a conversation, and we have to wait a few more decades to see the impact of that conversation.
I don't think it will take decades. I think it will be a lot quicker than this. If you don't mind, I think Nadine is back online. So Nadine, are you with us right now? Otherwise, this is
yes,
something
I am.
You are, Nadine. I think we had a fantastic conversation. I don't know if you had the chance to listen to the talk, but the last question I asked Bahia, and in fact it relates to what Moataz was saying, is obviously there is an appetite for more audience, more qualified audience, more aware audience, obviously more institutions, more schools. And the last question I asked Bahia is, do you feel that Art d'Egypte and the tremendous visibility of Art d'Egypte this year, do you feel this is a turning point for the art scene dynamic in Egypt? And I don't know if you heard the answer of Bahia, but I think there's a lot of hope with that. Maybe I would like for you to maybe comment on this question, if you don't mind.
I can only talk for myself. The progress I've seen since we started this initiative The idea started in 2016. Moataz can also speak because Moataz did a lot. He did the Off Biennale. He did a lot of activities, and I think all these initiatives put together are important to show that there's hope. There's a very dynamic art scene in Egypt and the region. As Art d'Egypte, we collaborated with a lot of entities from UAE, like of course the Art Circle. You guys attended, so you can say it live. You know what you've seen. We've had Circle, we've had AdMaf. So I truly believe there's a lot if we all put our efforts together. There's a very dynamic art scene in Egypt. It's huge. And the progress I have seen on my scale, which is not huge, I can say that it's been progressing every single year. We set the bar even higher on ourselves every year. We started in a small hall at the Egyptian Museum, then to the entire Manial Palace, 12 spaces, then to an entire street, then to the necropolis. So I think there is a lot to be done, and all our efforts together will definitely prevail.
Well, Nadine, thank you very much, and thank you all three. I think if there was any doubt, and I don't think there was any doubt, at least in this audience, for the dynamic in Egypt, you definitely convinced us that there is, but there is also something quite deep, and I think the depth of culture in Egypt is so strong that it only needed to flourish, I would say. So I remember going to Egypt several times, and I realized that almost every Egyptian, including the taxi driver to the waiter to artists, are always a bit of a poet. So I think it also, you can see it, you can feel it even in the way you are speaking. So it's quite obviously.
Speaking of the taxi driver, what touched me the most this year is, it took us 10 days. We only had 10 days, 24 hours to install the monumental pieces. So while installing, we had 150 Egyptian workers, and some of them were working with some of the foreign workers, Spanish, for instance, like the team of Lorenzo Quinn. And you cannot imagine, I mean, Moataz, of course, his team are just out of this world, but really all the other normal workers who have never seen art in their lives, let alone installations and contemporary art. We're so proud of being part of this project, and we're talking to artists and asking questions. And this just proves that we are ready. And the horse and carriage guys have been for the past weeks after the opening, explaining the artwork to people and doing art tours to the general public. So as you were saying, I think everyone is part of this ecosystem.
What we were saying earlier, and I will probably conclude, at least you can conclude with that, and of course everyone can react, Moataz or Bahia, is the inspiration to the younger generation. I was talking about the youth. I mean, obviously Egypt is a young country in terms of population. The pyramid of age is obviously not like in Europe. You are a very young population. So we are hoping that, of course, it will inspire the young generation. Moataz has gray hair like me, so I think we always hope that the young generation will be inspired. And I think from what Moataz, you said, it looks like the younger generation and younger people feel something is happening. So obviously, this is also quite inspiring and exciting, I would even say.
If I may,
you're on mute, Moataz.
Until Moataz is unmuted, we had 4 visits of local Egyptian schools through the UNESCO schools. And you cannot imagine the number of questions they were asking the artists. And not only some of them, it was their first time to visit the pyramids as well, but to see contemporary art and to talk to artists. So I think this is the proof. Yes, Egypt is ready.
And it was very smart to bring over Pharrell Williams. I mean, I think that was a very smart move. Definitely. He
came as a guest of one of the artists.
I know, of course, they're very good friends, of course. So yeah. Well, unfortunately, we have to close the show. we could not thank you enough. I think there's a lot of messages coming in from the audience of, congratulations and obviously admiration of the work that has been done for this particular event, but also on the demonstration that Bahia you made on this dynamic, and probably the hope that everybody should have. Again, Moataz, congratulations for this fantastic installation. I think I feel excited that when you said that this work might be staying in Egypt. I'm very, very excited, and please keep us informed about the destination, the final destination of this work, because this is a masterpiece, and I'm really hoping that the Egyptian people will have more time to see it, and I will have more time to see it as well. So very excited about this. So I will leave, if you don't mind, I will leave the floor to Barbara now. I could not thank you enough, and thank the audience, of course, for their participation. Barbara?
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Nadine, Moataz, and Bahia for sharing with us your views and insight about the new dynamic of the Egyptian art scene. We all know the important role you are all playing in the Egyptian art scene, and we can feel the passion and determination you have, as well as your hard work and creativity. As Nadine just mentioned it, some of us had indeed the great pleasure to come in Egypt for a few weeks ago for Art d'Egypte, and it was really a unique trip and fantastic trip. We were very, very lucky to be able to come. Thank you again so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. Also, a special thank you to Vincent, who has again been a great moderator. And on behalf of the Art Circle board, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Do not hesitate to follow our webpage and Instagram, theartcircle.ae, where you will find all the information and the videos. Stay safe, stay tuned, and stay with the Art Circle. Goodbye, everyone.